Salvete omnes. This is dependent subjunctive clauses, focusing on purpose clauses, chapter 44, exercise A. The instructions for this exercise are to read the English sentences and then translate into Latin. And like I said, we will be focusing on purpose clauses. And the kinds of purpose clauses that we have been introduced to so far are the adverbial kind, adverbial purpose clauses, answering the question of why. Why did a verbal action happen? Introduced by ut or ne. If the dependent subjunctive clause contains a comparative, then instead of ut or ne, the clause will be introduced by quo. There's also the adjectival flavor of purpose clauses, introduced by the relative pronoun qui, quae, quod, and for that reason they are often called relative purpose clauses. Now, we are not going to focus on substantive clauses of purpose in this chapter, otherwise known as indirect commands. Indirect commands, the substantive clauses of purpose, will be introduced and worked on in the next chapter, chapter 45. Before we start, we should also review and keep in mind sequence of tenses. So primary sequence, if the main verb introducing the dependent subjunctive clause is present tense, future perfect, also present subjunctive, or imperative, then the verb in the dependent clause is in the present subjunctive. Secondary sequence, if the main verb is a past tense, imperfect, perfect, or pluperfect tense, then the verb in the dependent clause will be in the imperfect subjunctive. So let's look at number one. Number one, I shall send a messenger to report this. I shall send a messenger to report this. So firstly, let's identify the purpose expression here. So I shall send a messenger, that's going to be first person singular future, indicative of mitto, mittere, missi, missus. I shall send an accusative direct object messenger, nuntius, nunti masculine, so nuntium. And I am sending this messenger, why? For what purpose? Why shall I send this messenger? Why is an adverb and is answered by an adverbial clause to report this, so that he may report this, so that the messenger may report this. That is why I am sending the messenger, so that he may report this. So if we're going with the adverbial flavor, we will introduce our clause to report this with either ut or ne. We want ut because it's positive. If it were negative, I shall send a messenger to not report this, lest he report this, so that he not report this. That would be ne. This is positive. We want him to report this, so it's going to be ut. We're going to use ut. There's no comparative, so no quo. And to report nuntio, nuntiare, nuntiavi, nuntiatus, if the main verb, the introductory verb, is present future, or future perfect, or present subjunctive or imperative, this is future, then the verb in the dependent clause, right here, report, must be in the present subjunctive. So we want that messenger to report this. He's third person singular. We want the present subjunctive and active. We want him to actively report this. So that's going to be nuntiat, nuntiat. So nuntio, nuntiare, present stem nuntia, change the A to an E, you get nuntiat. And then this, the direct object of the verb report, could either be the neuter hoc or the neuter id. So hoc or id. Altogether, the sentence could say something like nuntio mittam ut hoc or id nuntiat. Nuntiat. This sentence is in primary sequence because the main verb is future, making the dependent subjunctive verb in the present subjunctive. Now we could also translate this into Latin adjectivally, using a relative purpose clause, an adjectival purpose clause, instead of the adverbial kind. So we'll need qui, quae, quod to introduce the dependent clause, and it needs to have an antecedent, the noun that it agrees with and modifies. And that's going to be messenger, because we want the messenger to report this. I shall send a messenger who is to report this. That is his purpose. The purpose of the messenger, the antecedent, is to report this. So we want qui, the relative pronoun qui, to agree singular masculine with the messenger. And because he's the subject of this clause, nominative, so qui. And then everything else will be the same. The direct object will still be either hoc or id, and the verb will still be nuntiat. The only thing we've changed is that we've exchanged the adverbial ut for the introductory adjectival qui, quae, quod, qui. So down here are your possible answers. Nuntium mittam ut hoc or id nuntiat, or the adjectival flavor, nuntium qui hoc or id nuntiat mittam. You can pick either one. Really, it doesn't matter in English which one you pick. All right, excellent. Let's move on to number 2. I sent a messenger to report this. Notice the similarities between sentence number 2 and sentence number 1. What have we changed? The tense of the introductory verb. And that's going to change a few things. So we've changed the tense of the introductory verb. So in number 1, we determined that because this was a future indicative, we were in primary sequence, and that affected the tense of the subjunctive. Number 2, once again, the main introductory verb, I sent a messenger. Well, why'd you do that? So he could report this. Oh, so that was the purpose, the reason for sending the messenger. But I sent him in the past. We are in secondary sequence. Perfect tense. I sent. I did this in the past, and it's done. I sent this messenger. So perfect tense. So something like misi, nuntium, still the accusative direct object of nuntius, nunti masculine. And then so that he may report this. This is our purpose expression, to report this, so that he may report this. This must change from the present tense to the imperfect tense because our main verb is perfect. Because we're in secondary sequence, if the main verb is imperfect, perfect, or pluperfect, the verb in the dependent subjunctive clause must be in the imperfect subjunctive. So change nuntiet to nuntiaret. Present active infinitive nuntiare plus t, nuntiaret. And then this is still hoc or id. So altogether it could be something like nuntium misi ut hoc/id nuntiaret. Now, if we wanted to adjectivally do this, using a relative purpose clause, qui, quae, quod, it could be something like nuntium qui hoc or id nuntiaret nisi. As for word order, I'm just putting the adjectival qui, quae, quod version, putting that clause immediately following the antecedent, because the relative clause should immediately follow its antecedent, as much as you can. As for the adverbial version, because this hinges upon this verb, I put the clause right after the verb. Here, this clause more hinges upon the antecedent, so I put the clause immediately following the antecedent. Number 3, he will have come to hear us. He will have come to hear us. So he will have come is the future perfect, third person singular. So venerit, of venia, venire, veni, ventus. We want to macron over the e, venerit. So he will have come. And why will he have done that? Ut, so that he may hear us. He will have come so that he may hear us. So he wants the present subjunctive because we're in primary sequence. The main verb is future perfect. Primary sequence, we want present subjunctive of audio, audire, audivi, auditus. So audiat, because we want him to hear us, third person singular, so that he, audiat, may hear. The direct object accusative of nos is, wait for it, nos. So altogether something like venerit, ut nos audiat. Venerit, macron over the first e, ut nos audiat. I'm not going to do an adjectival version, a qui, quae, quod relative clause of purpose version, because it's a little tricky if the antecedent is nominative. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave this adverbial. Number 4. Men were sent to defend the bridge. Men were sent to defend the bridge. So men, that's nominative plural masculine. Weary masculine. So we have weary. They were sent. Were sent. That is third person plural, perfect passive indicative of mitto, mittere, missi, missus. So weary missi sunt. They were sent. Because the main verb is perfect, we're in secondary sequence, the subjunctive verb must be imperfect. So that they, the men, may defend the bridge. Defend is defendo, defendere, defendi, defensus. We want the imperfect subjunctive, because we're in secondary sequence. So imperfect subjunctive, defendere plus unt, defenderent, ut defenderent, and then the direct object of the verb is pons, pontis, masculine, accusative, pontem. So something like viri missi sunt, ut pontem defenderent. Now we can go ahead and try and do an adjectival version of this. We have the men, nominative, viri, qui, who were to defend the bridge, were sent. Men who were to defend the bridge were sent. Men were sent who were to defend the bridge. So viri, qui pontem defenderent, missi sunt. How about sentence 5? I shall send men to defend the bridge. So I shall send. So we have the future indicative of mitto, like in sentence number 1. So we have mittam. So we're in primary sequence. The subjunctive verb should be present subjunctive. Mittam viros ut defendant, present subjunctive, so that they may defend, defendant, the pontem. So viros mittam ut pontem defendant. Defend is the present stem of defendo, defendere, third conjugation. Add the a, defendant, defendant. We could also try for a adjectival version here, number 5. Something like viros qui pontem defendant mittam. Number 6, he has come to see them. He has come to see them. He has come so that he may see them. So the purpose expression is to see them, so that he may see them. This is why he did this verb. So he has come is the perfect tense, third person singular perfect of venio, venire, veni, ventus, macron over the e. So when it, as opposed to when it. When it is just present tense, he comes. When it is perfect tense, he came. Macron over the e makes a bit of a difference. So when it, ut, so that. Why do you do that? So that he may see them. So we have he has come. We have the perfect tense here. Now there are actually a couple different answers for this. Ask me about it when we meet in class. I'm going to go ahead and put one answer down. If you want to know the others, like I said, ask me in class. So he has come. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is secondary sequence because perfect tense. That means that this verb will be in the imperfect subjunctive. So when it, ut, and then eos is the direct object, them, accusative plural masculine of isea id, and then videret, videret. When it, ut eos, videret, so that he may see them, imperfect subjunctive. Videre, video, videre, vidi, visus, so videret. 7. He had fled so as not to be killed. He had fled so as not to be killed. So he had fled. That was what he did. Why did he do it? So that he might not be killed. So that he might not be killed. He had fled is pluperfect, third person singular. Fugio, fugere, fugi, macron over the u, fugitus. So fug, macron over the u, erat. Fugerat, fugerat. Why do you do that? so as not to be killed. This is a negative, so that he might not be killed. He had fled lest he be killed. Lest being the best translation of ne. Fugerat, ne, and then to be killed. So kill, we're going to use interficio. You could also use occido. Interficio, interficere, interfeci, interfectus. He had fled, pluperfect, secondary sequence, imperfect subjunctive. We want the imperfect subjunctive, third person singular, passive. He's not doing the killing, he's being killed. Not nice for him. So interficere, and then add the tur. Add the tur for the third person singular passive. So interficaretur. Fugerat, ne interficaretur. All right, 8. They are fleeing so as not to be killed. They are fleeing. So they're doing it right now. Present tense, present time, primary sequence. So present subjunctive in the dependent clause. They are fleeing. Fugiunt. Fugiunt. It's a third IO. Fugio, fugere. Fugiunt. U-N-T. Fugiunt. Nay. And then present subjunctive. Interficiantur. Interficiantur. It's interfici, add the a, and then the untur, interficiantur. Number 9, they will come to look at you. Sounds kind of odd. So they will come to look at you. So they will come, future tense. So we're in primary sequence. So venio, venire, veni, ventus. So venient, because it's a fourth conjugation. Venient. And why are they going to do that? For the purpose of looking at you, so that they may look at you. Present subjunctive of specta, spectare, spectavi, spectatus. Specta is the present stem, change the A to an E. Spectent, so they, third plural, may look at you. At is part of the verb specto, takes the direct object you, accusative of to is te. So something like venient, ut te spectent. Venient, ut te spectent. They will come so that they may look at you. Sounds ominous. 10. Will you come with me to warn them? Will you come with me to warn them? All right, we have an interrogative here, a question. It's a yes or no, and we're not trying to influence the answer in any sort of way. It's just a straight up yes or no. Will you come with me to warn them? So we're going to use the enclitic ne, N-E, attached to whatever the first word of the sentence is. I'm going to make it the verb. So will you come? You will come is venies. Venies. I'm going to say veniesne. With me is not cum me, but me cum. Veniesne me cum. Will you come with me? So that we may warn them. Will you come with me so that we may warn them? I guess you could also say so that I may warn them. We don't really have to include the so that I may warn them or that we may warn them. I'm going to go ahead and use the first person singular. Will you come with me so that I may warn them? If you want to make it first person plural, that's fine as well. So will you come with me? Me cum, so that I may warn them. Ut, eos, and then moneam, from moneo, monere, monui, monitus, to warn, to advise. So we want the present subjunctive because we're in primary sequence of the future indicative. Will you come equals you will come. So primary sequence, present subjunctive of warn, moneo, second conjugation, mone, add the a, and then the moneam. If you wanted that verb to be first person plural, will you come with me so that we may warn them? Moneamus is the answer. So veniesne me cum ut eos moneam, or veniesne me cum ut eos moneamus. Optime, very well done. You are now ready to move on to exercise B of chapter 44. Valete omnes.